This is Derek Prall, editor of American City and County Magazine. I have with me today Brent Maas, who is the Executive Director for Business Strategy and Relationship at NIGP, the Institute for Public Procurement. So, Brent, can you tell me a little bit about NIGP, who you guys are, what you do for local government?
Sure. NIGP is a professional association. We are an association that serves principally state and local governments, educational, school districts, higher ed, and special districts, authorities, port authorities, and so on. The Institute's been in existence since 1944. We started out actually as an offshoot of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and over time, we have developed into a premier training organization for state and local procurement professionals, and providing best practice guidance and over 300 educational sessions every year.
Oh, wow.
We touch over 3,000 individuals through those courses, and then our webinar program, we touch about 8,000 to 9,000 people every year. So very successful programs that way in terms of sharing knowledge and information about procurement practices.
Sure. So, speaking of procurement practices, it seems like that can be a little bit siloed at times. So, say I'm a mayor or a council person. What do I need to know about my city's procurement practices? Do I need to be involved in it? What's the interplay like there?
Well, I think the good news, so to speak, is that hopefully you will in fact have procurement professionals working on your behalf, such that you wouldn't have to be involved too often. Oftentimes, though, what the mayor or an elected official or senior officials do have involvement with is typically the approval process. Once a recommendation for contracting is made on larger projects, generally is when you're going to have, I'll say, the most immediate official capacity with regard to procurement. But an important point, I think, really to understand about procurement is that your procurement department touches in some way more spend than any other department in the agency, with the exception of what is spent on salaries and benefits, and retirement. So, once that's taken care of, if you think about, well, where's the money going through? You're going to see most of that money is going through some form of a contracting process.
And so the speaking of the contracting process, kind of the way that this is being accomplished seems like it's changing a little bit. Where we have this kind of emergence of government co-ops. These are really growing in popularity. Can you tell me, again, from the perspective of mayor, councilman, elected official, what do I need to know about co-ops right now? How is that changing kind of the face of procurement?
Sure. Well, the biggest contributing factor to the efficiency associated with a contracting process comes when agencies are able to utilize existing contracts that have already been established by other public entities. And that really is the fundamental principle that's being applied when you hear that term cooperative purchasing or cooperative practices. So instead of necessarily having to go through a competitive process independently, your agency's procurement folks can have that opportunity to look at other agencies who've already been down the same path for similar services or similar products, and in doing that can save anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 months in what would otherwise have been a competitive process. So, when you're used to hearing about procurement slowing things down, this is a very valuable way that they can speed up that process. It's not the answer to every situation, and there's a lot of things to know and understand as a procurement person as you evaluate options, but in terms of overall business practice, cooperatives provide tremendous efficiency opportunities.
Gotcha. Okay. So I understand that NIGP recently released this public procurement guide for elected and senior government officials. Can you tell me a little bit about that guide? Why it was necessary to release it, and sort of what's the content there? What can I learn from this guide?
Sure. Well, what drove it, among other things, is the idea that when folks come into government, oftentimes they have no experience or understanding of procurement, the process, what the functionality is, and why there may be anything about it that's all that important. Now, hopefully, any given agency is going to have some element of procurement training for those people who are coming in new to the agency, and especially if they are going to have some involvement with procurement. So the guide is that opportunity to get a very high-level overview of the top 10 most important things that you might want to know and be aware of as it relates to procurement. The guide itself is short, but it's actually split such that there's the top 10 list, the top 10 topics, and after each, we provided on a single page that you can pull out key takeaways for each of those top 10 issues, and just a brief paragraph or two that gives you some guidance on how to leverage procurement as it relates to those 10 points. Then the guide goes on to get into a little more detail for those who might have the interest on each of those 10 topics. So it's maybe about, 10 pages, 12 pages at the most, but you can pull out that single page and walk away with that and stick it in your pocket and, instant reference.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. It sounds like a really valuable resource. So for the listeners here, if you'd like to read the guide yourself, we have it available on our site to download for free. It's right at the end of this story, so you can just click on the link, download it. Or if you're watching this on YouTube or somewhere else, you can visit www.americancityandcounty.com, click on the story titled Working Together, and you can download the guide there. I think that covers everything that I wanted to talk about today, Brent. So thank you so much for talking to us. It's always a pleasure.
And thank you as well. It is always a pleasure. Appreciate it, Derek.
Sure.
Thanks so much.